Yo! Today I wanted to share an informational resource with you and provide a little bit of context for it as well. We've got an episode of the Cat Cloud Coffee Podcast in video form that we've been uploading to our YouTube that I think a lot of you will find really interesting. I sat down and talked to Charles Jack, who's a co-owner with me and Jared in our business, and he's also our green buyer, and his story is really unique because a lot of people that we know got involved with coffee through working in cafes and working in retail, and he started from the exact other end of the supply chain. His first job in coffee was in Ethiopia, working for a company called TechnoServe, and they were basically setting up coffee washing stations at origin in Africa. He moved from Ethiopia to South Sudan. How do I explain it? He was basically working on writing this grant that allowed them to export the first coffee that they've exported out of the country in over like 10 years. He later ended up working for coffee roasting companies in the States, and now we work together, but it's really cool to see the juxtaposition between what he sees or how he sees the world and how we see the world. So I sat down with him to talk about a really hot topic in the specialty coffee industry, and that's this topic of Geisha. And if you don't know what Geisha is, it basically goes like this. Geisha is a variety of coffee. So if you know nothing about this, basically just how there's different kinds of apples. You've got Golden Delicious, Red Delicious, Gala, Macintosh, etc. There's all different types of coffee, and they have weird names that we're usually not familiar with. Caturra, Bourbon, SL28, Katwai, all different coffee varieties. Geisha is this really rare variety that is supposedly from Ethiopia somewhere way back in the day, and it was kind of rediscovered in 2004 in Panama when Hacienda Esmeralda, the Peterson family in Boquete, submitted a lot of this coffee to the Best of Panama auction, and it basically blew the doors off everybody, and people started looking into it a little bit more. Since then, people have been taking seed stock from there, transplanting it in a bunch of different places. You've got Geisha growing all over the place, and it's fetching really premium prices. And just like anything else, there's good examples of it and there's bad examples of it. And what we've seen is a little bit of this name kind of carrying coffees of various qualities. And some of the Geisha is definitely worth this money, but I don't think all of it is. And I wanted to talk with him about this idea and see what he thought of as a green buyer and relating that to the idea of retail. How can we do the coffee justice? How can we inform our customers? How do really fancy, expensive coffees fit in the mix of a coffee company? We also switch gears and talk about cash flow a little bit and the realities of managing cash flow while owning a coffee roasting and retail company. And if you own a cafe or a roastery, it's pretty interesting stuff to hear as well. So I really just wanted to give a shout out to the podcast. If you don't listen to our podcast, you can find it on iTunes, and we just started doing video, and this is the only one that I'll cross post, but you can find them over at the Cat Cloud YouTube, which I will link below. And it's just a good longer form source of information, another resource for coffee if you want to geek out on coffee. So without further ado, here is me and Charles Jack, green buyer and co-owner of Cat Cloud with me, and I hope you freaking love this. Let me know what you think. All right, y'all. Peace.
This is the rhythm of the night. Oh no, hold on. And then if you want your headphone up, you can turn your headphone up. Dude, we're on. This is the first edition of the Videocast. Ow! Everything's on. I don't know what this looks like. It's going to be great.
It's two handsome dudes.
It's two hot guys waiting to be hot with each other.
In a kitchen.
We got pretty much nothing going on in this kitchen. I tried to make it clean, though.
It is clean. You did a good job.
Got the Breville back there. 2 Brevils.
Did you make some espresso this morning?
No. I went to the cafe. I got up really early and I hung out with Sarah.
She's tight.
Yeah, she drew a postcard for us.
Oh.
That we're going to send to special people.
Oh, killer.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So many creative minds in the cafe.
Little gifts. It's super sick. So there's two times this month where you are here.
Yes.
2 Chuck casts.
Yes, I put it on the calendar.
2 Chuck casts. It's fucking sick. It's going to be great. So you have this wealth of knowledge of all kinds of ridiculous stuff, but
maybe
don't sell yourself short, man. Don't sell yourself short.
Just a humble guy.
Pretty psyched. Oh, I'm thinking because since we're on video, it's a little bit different. How are those working?
Oh,
you gotta open them up.
No, we're good.
These are from Plantronics, by the way, which is a local Santa Cruz company.
The same headsets from the moon.
Yeah, they made the moon landing possible. Basically, they are NASA. They're not NASA.
Oh, this is what's recording? The
Well, that's
video?
recording us.
All right, not
but that's
that.
recording you.
Oh, double check.
Because you're the star. So I'm thinking we'll like cut back and forth. And
All
then
right.
when you drop hard knowledge,
Yeah.
we'll just cut.
All right.
So I don't even have my own camera, but you
Digging
have your
in.
own camera.
Killer.
Isn't that tight?
I should always have my own camera.
So sick. But yeah, shout out to Plantronics for the headphones.
Yeah.
They're Bluetooth, they're wireless, they do all kinds of stuff.
tight.
Yeah, I got another pair too.
Just when there's
The bigger ones.
When there's threes.
The bigger ones. They're freaking nuts. Yeah, because usually with audio, we'll drop like an ad roll in.
yeah.
And
yeah.
we start by talking about Curtis, who has been a sponsor of the podcast for a long time.
Yeah.
So Curtis sponsors the podcast. Wilbur, Curtis. And if you need a brewer for commercial purposes, you should definitely get a Curtis brewer because there's a lot of reasons why. My favorite, as I said in the previous ad roll, is their service.
Yeah.
They get back to you so fast, and that's invaluable.
Well, and I mean, I just don't think we ever have any. There's never anything wrong with them.
Oh, no.
It's like
No, there's
zero
never any
maintenance.
problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is also
It's
huge.
just like peace of mind. You get a good piece of equipment and you just trust that it's always going to be there.
It's funny the stuff you care about when you own a business. Like it changes a lot before
Yeah,
you
that
own
was-
a business.
that
You're
was the
like,
business owner's
you want to be
answer.
in like the nerdiest stuff. Like, oh, I need like the tightest, most nerdiest thing ever. And now we're like, is it gonna fucking break?
Yeah.
'Cause if it's even gonna break a little bit, I don't even want to touch it. Not
yeah,
into
no,
it.
that's like one of the first things from my mind. That's like, dude, we never have to.
We never do anything
Yeah,
with it.
they're just like set it. And
It's plug
forget
and play.
It. Yeah,
And the set programming is really good too,
yeah,
which is tight.
yeah, because we've started doing a bit more with our drip coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Tweaking
like-
the beef.
Yeah, it's just supported everything we've needed.
Curtis, man, what else? You know, they're brilliant. Anyway, we've got some special stuff coming out of the roastery.
Oh,
that
yeah.
Chuck's in charge of, and this is just I don't know. It's coffee, but there's like there's a philosophical movement behind it, bro.
Yeah, totally. So, man, one of the things, just kind of when you one of the things like making up the menu for the coffees we offer is just wanting to offer like a variety of different things,
Right.
but still making it right. I mean, all of our customers, cafes and things, they're buying coffee for their cafes, so they have to be a bit mindful of what they're buying to put in their cafe. But I like the idea of experience, and I wanted to offer a geisha on our menu, and just a few times a year. But I hate that it costs so much.
I feel you.
And I think it's interesting from like a taste experience point of view,
Right.
Because they're not my favorite coffees.
No, they're not my favorite either.
Right?
They
Like,
have a unique character to them.
Yeah,
though.
I would take like a really awesome like Nyeri Kenya, like really bright, acidic, complex, flavorful, or like a really awesome Yerg and like the florality that comes with that.
And both of those coffees, the coffees that we're thinking of, and I'm assuming we're tracking on the same page, in my mind are actually more complex than what you get from a lot of the geishas that we're tasting.
Yeah, totally.
Which are good, but can be one-dimensional or have like a certain...
And even have like a little herbal aspect to some of them.
It's like when the bergamot goes wrong.
Yeah, but at the same time in coffee, I feel like I love like the breadth of experience and like palate development. And I think geishas are interesting for people to taste.
Right.
To
For sure.
kind of taste something different, palate development.
Well, it's like
just
one
have
of-
a different experience.
And it's one of the first and maybe only coffees that I can think of, besides maybe Pacamara too, that people are really strongly identifying a certain taste characteristic with the varietal.
Yeah.
And not just, most people don't go around saying like, oh yeah, that Bourbon is just...
SL28.
Yeah, SL28's on fire.
Even though the coffees are...
It's all regional,
on fire. So I thought it'd be pretty cool to offer something like that, but I don't want to charge our customers like $30 a pound, like $40 a pound for this geisha. So we're just doing this thing in December this month where essentially we're offering a geisha to our customers, but we're going to do it at cost.
At cost.
Yeah, just like what our cost is and pass that on.
it.
Just because it's so expensive. And
Right.
I just don't know if you can justify that for something that's interesting, but not like the best coffee I've ever tasted.
Right. It's priced on its rarity, perhaps,
Yeah.
and its market presence, and not necessarily its straight quality.
Yeah. So
That's interesting. Do you
Yeah.
feel like geisha prices have been like inflated artificially in the sense of, I feel like, so you've got like the OG Hacienda Esmeralda,
Yep.
right? And then a lot of the geisha in that area around Panama is kind of transplanted from that.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing it transplanted in all kinds of other places. And I see geisha just fetching a premium, even though there's a wide range of quality associated with it.
Yeah, and it's almost like the prices start at a minimum of $15 a pound just because it's from geisha.
Just because it's geisha,
seed
right.
stock, or, you know.
And some of it's so not worth it from what I've tasted.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking from our think of like our retail customers' point of view. Like, are they going to come in and, I mean, honestly, if I wanted to charge $10 for a cup of coffee, it'd be like a really awesome Kenya or a really awesome Yerg. Like, but then to like charge people $10 a cup for a geisha, which, you know, they might think is interesting, but they're not going to come in and want to drink it every day or
No. Well, it's, and this is where I could see people writing in and being like, well, it's worth it. And it is, in the sense of good coffee is still probably like the best fancy deal around.
Right.
Like you can buy the best coffee for far cheaper than you can buy the best bottle of wine
Yep.
or the best cigar. So it's not that we're saying as a company that this coffee's not worth this much money. It's just, it's hard for people.
yeah.
And it keeps a lot of people away from experiencing something potentially unique and awesome just because it's a scary, I don't know.
Proposition.
Yeah, like $10. I mean, I think of me as a coffee nerd when I was a barista. You don't have a lot of money and you want to try all these coffees. Like if you went and go tried geisha and got something else at a coffee shop, you're out like $20.
Yeah.
And that's a lot.
Yeah, it's tough. So I mean, I see that balance, and you see the balance for the farmer where they're able to grow. You know, some farms, it's just kind of a small percentage of what they grow, and it's maybe a nice boost. But yeah, I mean, I don't even know from that point of view how sustainable it's going to be long term. Just in that you don't drink it in the cafe every day.
Right. You know, someone, I think it was I Brew Coffee on Instagram, was talking about that idea in general, that people are, I'm freaking going to butcher what you're saying, Mason. I'm sorry. But yeah, that a lot of these coffees that people are bringing to the table, they're not being served day to day in the cafe, and it's not really promoting the entire specialty coffee industry, and it's not doing any favors. It's not really doing a ton of favors for the farmers because it's not the bulk of their production.
Right, exactly. I mean, really, it's like the biggest thing that would help farmers is bringing up the price for
all the normal
coffee that they grow.
Yeah,
because that's the majority of what they grow.
Instead of, I sold 3 bags at $300 a pound, but then all my other coffees just
and there's good writing from James Hoffman as well on kind of like a similar topic to that.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I totally agree with that. And then also on the business side, here's the other fucked up thing, which you just reminded me of, which we're talking about selling it for an affordable price so that people can buy it, but also we'll actually sell it all.
Yeah.
Right. Because you remember, we would, in the past, there would be like really special lots of coffees at other places that we would price really, really high.
Yeah.
And sure, it's worth it, but you only sell like 20% of what you have because only a small amount of your customers even want to get down.
Yeah.
And then you have geisha from fucking 3 years ago just collecting dust in the roastery.
Chilling.
And then you bite the bullet eventually and you're like, well, I guess I'm just going to blend it into espresso or something.
Right.
Which, is that honoring the farm or anything?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like an interesting topic, and something I wanted to talk about this morning just because it is like an interesting part of our industry, but I don't think anyone's really found like the sweet spot for where it exists.
What do you see it, if you were going to forecast geisha in our green position, let's say, like how much of a percentage of the coffee we buy do you see as these super fancy coffees?
Totally. Let's do some. Yeah, we'll do some math, right?
He's deep in thought. If you're not watching this on video, you have to imagine a man just thinking as hard as he can.
So I'm gonna say if we go through maybe like 200,000 pounds of green a year,
Okay.
and Geisha will have like 150 pounds.
150 pounds. So if you got a calculator, you can run that percentage.
Go the decimal points on that. But I bet it's similar for other companies as well. And that's just where it's like, is that, where does Geisha fit in the industry, for other companies as well? I think it's pretty similar. It's just like such a small piece.
Yeah. It might be, offering at a lower price might be a brilliant sales tool that you're also coming up with. Because not necessarily,
not for us.
Not for us. No, yes. Not in the sense of you're going to move that coffee and make a lot of money with it. But let's say if you take our menu where you have coffee, like batch brew coffee, you come in, you get a coffee, right? There's a margin on that. And then you have a by the cup that we're running through the espresso machine. We've got 2 coffees by the cup, like ready to go at any times for a little bit more money. It's like a premium experience, different single origin coffees. Also, it's a better margin for us, right? We make more money off that. So if you're offering someone a really special coffee for basically batch brew price and they try it, they're like, oh, wow, that's really cool. I've only ever drank the Answer and that was good. Yeah. But this is a whole different world of coffee. Maybe by hooking someone like that, you turn a batch brew customer into a daily, like by the cup drinking customer.
Yeah, that's true.
And our margin goes up, your business benefits, people are introduced to more coffee. So
it's kind of like a win-win.
It's like a win-win. Yeah. It could be a potential gateway drug.
Yeah. I'd love just for us to offer it on regular batch brew.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And just see what people's
see how
thoughts
much
are.
people
see
trip.
What the 400 people that come in the door, what do they think of it, just on the daily? Yeah,
it'd be so cool. I could see us batch brewing it and then just even also sampling it out too.
Yeah.
Like when the cafe's packed, like Friday morning and someone just goes around like little 3 ounces.
Yeah, because
check it out.
That's like the value is just in expanding people's taste to it, I guess. And expanding their thoughts of what coffee can be. Because it is a little bit different,
Serious, dude. It has no value sitting in a bag when someone can't buy it for $70.
Yeah, totally. And just to talk about ours for a bit, it is, you mentioned La Esmeralda. So this, this Geisha's sourced from, through our friend Aleko at Red Fox, and it's actually from the seed stock from La Esmeralda that was taken from Panama and grown in Colombia at one of his friends' farms. So so it's like, dude, it's an awesome coffee, and I'm just stoked to see what our customers just on the regular think about it if they're not charged, and do their perceptions change if it's not $10 a cup.
I wonder if there's an expectation letdown sometimes if you're paying those high prices for coffees too on the customers' end.
I feel like it's all just an expectation versus reality.
Because if I pay $10 for coffee, it better be perfect.
Yeah,
you better blow my mind.
Yeah,
you better mind melt me for $10. Because you can get mind melted down the street. We could mind melt you for $3.50. You know what I mean? Like the Chavez. I was like, shit,
so good.
Dude, it's so good.
Shout out to Benjamin.
It doesn't really get a lot better. I'm like, Dad, this is amazing coffee
that
I can have for $3.50. $10. Fuck, dude. You better roll me hard. That's so.
Yeah. So
how long has that coffee been in the wings for then? So from transplant to harvest, you're looking at usually 5 years.
I think 4 years.
4 years.
Maybe they got the first. So it's 4 or 5. Yeah.
It's okay. So it's crazy the lead time on that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, for any coffee, right?
I know.
It's that investment.
It's just, it's so insane that you already have a farm, and then you're like, okay, cool. I'm going to bring in the seed. I'm down with the waiting game.
Yeah.
Because that land is potentially used for something that's already producing.
Totally.
So to get ahead in the game, you're just kind of taking a chance.
Yeah, which I mean, that is a whole other topic that I got to delve deep in when I worked with TechnoServe in East Africa, in Ethiopia, in Kenya, and South Sudan. We just see the coffee side of it, but it is seasonally a decision that the farmers take really seriously as to how, what they're growing that season and what they're reducing, what they're pulling out and what they're planting in, and how that's going to affect their cash flow, for their, for their family. So, we just see this one side of it, but yeah, it's a big investment from the farmer's point of view.
What was the life of a plot of coffee? So if stuff starts producing around 4 years And then, what's the lifespan of a tree in those places? Or
Yeah,
a shrub?
in Ethiopia, most of the people that we worked with felt like I want to say like 7 to 10 years before they'd potentially look at like chopping it back down and letting it start again.
It's not a very long lifespan,
right?
For a plant.
Yeah,
man.
I mean, yeah, and again, I think ideas vary, and you could probably let it go longer and get more out of it a little bit, but it's just, it just boils down to kind of like the traditional farming practices in each part of the world.
Do you feel like there could be some weird negative effects of something like a geisha push? To where, let's say you're a coffee farmer, you have X amount of land. Something like geisha trends heavily and starts coming up in the market, and you feel pressured to use X% of your land to transplant geisha. You do that, and then either it's hot for 1 or 2 years, or the bulk of it doesn't sell, or not as much as what you need to, and then you're just like, shit, I should have just had like Katura in there. Or something.
Yeah, it's potentially dangerous, right? Because geishas can be like, are traditionally like pretty finicky.
They're not
trees
like hardy,
to take care of, right? And certain altitudes, and a lot of time and attention. So, yeah, totally. It's like you really want to understand what you're getting into, because it is such like a year commitment, and there's like an opportunity cost to everything, right? You could be growing something else that that turns over annually that you're making money from. So it's like, it gets real pretty fast.
Yeah. That would be a good little case study for someone to do.
Yeah.
Should Hoffman do that? Hoffman, you can do that?
Yeah.
I'm looking for you, bro, dude. Hook me up.
Do it.
Somebody else. I don't know. That's freaking, dude, that's heavy. So geisha should be coming on.
Yeah.
When?
In the next few weeks, we'll have it on the menu.
And it'll be on the web.
Yep.
On the web. What's it called?
Jeremiah. It's Columbia Jeremiah's.
Jeremiah's.
Geisha.
Sounds like a random white guy name.
Aleko's friend Jeremiah.
Aleko's friend
in
Jeremiah.
Columbia.
That's going to be fun. I was talking with the roastery crew about doing just a big roasting party.
Oh, killer.
Grace is like, you going to come in and roast the geisha? I'm like,
Dude.
nah.
Oh,
And then they're
we
like,
should
yeah, you
pull
should.
in for it.
And I was like, okay, cool. I'm all, you got this. And she totally does. But it would be fun to roast coffee like that
dude,
together.
we'll pull you in.
Because I have actually. We had that Los Lajones.
Yeah.
Man, that was a while ago.
Yeah.
That was tricky coffee.
Yeah.
Natural geisha? Dude, that did not like a lot of heat. That went bad. We had one bad batch of that.
Yeah.
After that, though, it was dialed.
It was pretty hot fire.
Yeah, it tasted really good.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really good. We'll pull you in.
I'm excited.
Killer.
Dude, that's tight. This kind of blew my mind at first. This is switching gears from geisha, but still related to money and how much things cost, and cash flow in the cafe is cash flow. So when I was a kid, I was like, okay, you have a business and then you make money, and then whatever your net profit is, that's like the amount of money that you have. So money going out versus money coming in, and it's as easy as that. But it's not actually as easy as that. There's this other little devil animal called
totally.
Cash flow.
Yeah, we can switch gears and talk about this.
I only want to talk about it really quickly because it's something that people ask about a lot, specifically when they write in and request for the Chuck.
Yeah.
They want to know these weird things because we've touched on it before, but you can explain it better than I or Jared can.
And it's really relevant because, we go over our cafe financials with our employees, and it's just something that kind of you wouldn't necessarily see just from looking at the P&L, is kind of like how all the cash is moving around within the business that doesn't show up just on a straight P&L. So it's definitely something I think about when, we go to talk to our employees about it, just to show that hey, our month looked like this, and this is what our net income looked like. But this doesn't mean that this money is just accumulating every month in a bank account,
So let's do it like quick setting the stage. Most people probably know this, but so you've got your gross versus your net. What's the difference?
Just
our profit, I guess.
Right. Yeah, we could break down an income statement as just your revenue, being all the money you bring in, minus the cost of the things that you sell,
which is
your cost of goods,
COGS.
right? I'm just thinking of a cafe. It's your cost of coffee, your cost of pastries, your cost of merch, cups,
baggies,
everything you physically pay for falls into your cost of goods. And so your revenue minus your cost of goods leaves you with your gross profit.
Gross profit.
And And then underneath that are kind of, we look at it, all the expenses that are required to kind of like run that business. It's labor, it's rent, it's utilities, any kind of like repairs and maintenance in the cafe. So we kind of categorize all those together as like our kind of like SG&A, or like selling and general administrative expenses. And then so kind of subtracting that out from your gross.
Those are different than cost of goods because those things don't get sold.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So kind of subtracting those out from your gross profit leaves you like your net income.
Right, which is money to the bottom line.
Yeah, which usually, banks or investors, things like that they kind of want to see. That's like a general idea of like how your business is performing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Put that in the bank. Everybody got that? Got it?
Yeah.
Down? All right. Now, cash flow.
Yeah, and so that's kind of where you lose a lot of people who aren't really familiar, who aren't running the business or doing the financial side of things, is that, right, that's just not kind of how real life works, right? It's like you take in money, you pay out your cost of goods at one time, you pay out your labor and everything, and you're just left with this pot of money. It's like there's all these cash inflows and outflows throughout the month. So cash flow, it's really has a lot to do with like the timing of money going in and out.
Okay.
And, so while, we try to settle all the books and everything and show a number at the end of the month, is really, there's things like, that you don't see, like inventory, any kind of like investments in like the building or equipment, things like that won't show up on the income statement. So those are kind of like some of the, cash outflows that you'll see during the month. And then, any other kind of non-revenue cash inflows that come in might affect that as well. Or, I think the big things, like accounts receivable, like from our wholesale side of the business. You're selling coffee to people, but not receiving the money.
Right. So someone places an order. We take our coffee, roast it, put it in a box, send it out the door.
Yeah.
So we're out of that coffee.
Yeah, and you recognize that coffee as a sale.
Right.
As like revenue.
But you actually haven't taken payment for it yet.
Totally.
So that's where there's a little bit of a discrepancy.
Yeah, there could be like a mismatch where, between the difference of like when you're recognizing the sale. And I mean, if somebody doesn't pay you for 3 months, it's like you've recognized that revenue, but you actually haven't received the cash.
Right.
And so that's going to affect your cash flow.
And that can spiral out of control really, really fast.
Yeah, and
especially
seen
with AR.
Yeah, totally. With like receiving money, and it's just managing a business. Man, you see people have really big cash difficulties if they're not receiving that cash, if they're selling to customers who aren't paying. And I mean, that's part of our systems is, just we take a lot of payments in credit card form, just so that we're kind of taking that payment up front and not relying on somebody sending a check, 30, 60, or 90 days later.
So if you went 3 months, let's say someone buys, I don't know, like $2,000 worth of coffee from you every month, and then they don't pay for 3 months. So that's $6,000 worth of stuff that you've recorded as a sale and you don't have money for. So even though you could show like a net income or net profit,
totally.
You could be cash flow negative.
Totally, because the expectation is that you are receiving that money in a reasonable amount of time. And, if potentially you have customers that never pay, like customers that go out of business, it's your responsibility to charge that sale off and to essentially like subtract it back out.
Which you've seen that happen before too. And it gets nasty. You got to go to collections and then you might have just thousands of dollars that just never show up.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. You really have to be careful.
What is I should probably know this, but I totally don't. What's our standard on payment for if we're talking wholesale?
Yeah,
accounts?
we charge. Generally, we charge everyone's credit card after we ship their coffee.
Right.
Yeah, and it just keeps it really simple. We're like a really small company. We don't necessarily have the people or time or manpower to call and follow up on invoices and things like that. And it just keeps it really simple if we're selling coffee and charging a credit card. Yeah, I think that's just the simplest way to do it.
Yeah, and all our people pay us.
Yeah,
which is great. Because I've seen before there's this pressure
we
where
we had one person who didn't pay us.
Oh, dude,
I don't want to say their name.
Gone
on the on the interweb.
We should not say their name on the interweb.
Yeah, just to be nice.
And if someone can't pay, we're not here to judge them, but we can't enter into like a business relationship with that person.
Totally. Yeah.
Because we want it to be this two-way thing to where we're going to uphold our end of the bargain.
Yeah.
And ship you coffee.
It's just really
and get you
disappointing.
stuff.
Yeah.
And it's hard. And it's funny because I know that when I look at other people that are sometimes dealing with us and they have these little snafus, like everybody thinks that they're running the business, right? Like people are like, they don't get it. Like, I'm trying to run a business here. Like, I'm trying to run a business here. And people, because we're the roaster, people look at us as a much bigger business than we actually are.
We're not that big.
And we're not that big, yeah. So we're like, hey, we're in the same boat as you are. We're trying to run a business. So your $2,000 for coffee is really important to us.
Definitely.
And, we've been fortunate to just foster that. And it's funny. It's nice to have that we don't even have that conversation. It's not like a discussion because back in the day, it was kind of like, oh, there's this pressure to just let people slide. But then it just
makes it more uncomfortable for everyone.
It's just nasty.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a big part of cash flow is kind of like your accounts receivable and how well you do collecting payments. Another part of it is your accounts payable and like how, in what timely fashion you pay people, right? Because another way to I guess you improve your cash flow if you pay people slower.
Right.
Because they're like, you're kind of building up this, it's still a liability, like you still owe it. But, if you're paying people in 14 days instead of 7 days, then, you have your cash for like a little bit longer.
Which is like the opposite idea of what we just talked about.
Well, I would hope for most people that like paying on a credit card is like a nice balance because then as the purchaser, and we do this a lot where we pay people with a credit card and cool, we have 30 days to pay the credit. Like the credit card company is kind of the intermediary.
Right.
Please, everyone pay your credit card every month.
So if you have, let's say if you pay with a credit card and then you have that 30-day leniency window, it would make the most sense for your cash flow position to stretch that out for the entire length of the window. Yeah. It's like if you have 30 days, there's no reason to pay someone back on day 2 because then basically that takes cash out of the equation that you could potentially use for something else.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I mean, those are your big kind of cash flow things, right? It's inventory, or right, just to circle back, like accounts receivable, how well you're doing on collecting payment, accounts payable, how the timeline with which you're paying people, and then a big one for us and for all coffee roasters is inventory, particularly green inventory coffee is like one of the toughest cash flow situations for any like coffee roaster
because it's just the biggest chunk of money that will ever go out the window.
Totally. Writing checks for so many thousands of dollars at a time, and
it's heavy. I see you working on it, and that's probably one of the most compelling reasons for people who own specialty coffee shops to not roast. Right?
Totally.
Because roasting makes sense in that, okay, maybe my cost per pound is going to go down a little bit. But can you write that check and can you manage that on a regular basis?
Managing it is a big task. And just as you grow, it only gets bigger and bigger amount of money that you're paying out. So it's kind of managing that growth as well. And just so inventory, there's gonna be different times of the year when you're paying out more as well, right? If you talk about buying coffee seasonally, which I think a lot of kind of like the upper tier companies in the specialty coffee industry do, is like you're buying the bulk of your think about like Central American harvests and African harvests kind of lining up, like Ethiopia, Kenya kind of line up a little bit with a lot of Central America. So you're buying the bulk of your coffee, paying for it in, May, June, July, kind of receiving it August, September. That's like all of Central America, all of those coffees, you're all kind of like buying them at the same time. So it's potentially like a pretty big...
It's a big chunk out all at once.
Outflow come like, August, September, October. So it's just kind of like managing that aspect can be challenging and stressful. And so it's like a lot of times you don't see the money that's made in different cafes or something, it's kind of going toward building the inventory during certain times of the year.
Right, because if you have a big buying chunk like that, it's not like you're just worrying about it then. You're planning the entire year and forecasting, knowing that, okay, this is going to be like 60 to 70% of the coffee that I'm going to buy this year.
Yeah, exactly, right? I buy probably like 75% of the coffee that I plan out the whole year and buy the majority of the coffee during those months. And then it's about like managing and spreading it out over the rest of the year.
And if you want to get really awesome, fresh, exclusive, interesting lots of coffees.
Yep, that's how you have
to do it.
Yep.
You got to do the dirty, dude.
Yeah.
You got to make it nasty.
Fight everybody else.
You got to just karate chop, dude. That's cool though. It's been awesome to see because it feels hard sometimes as a small business to like, are we going to be able to get those coffees?
Yeah.
And we have.
Yeah.
And starting with the stuff that we pulled out of Guat, before
Luis
we even
Pedro.
opened.
Right.
And then,
It's great relationships.
It's so cool. And it's funny to see how, I don't have any illusions of who we are or whatever. And like people like Aleko and Jeff Watts, they're like paving the way and they have obviously like deep relationships. But just to go there, have people spend time with you, have people care, even though you're like a little tiny person. And then, that was one. And then the stuff that you pulled out of Honduras.
Yeah. Yeah, with the help of Ben Amin, who maybe you guys are going to go see.
I hope so.
Early next year.
I got a trip on the books.
Yeah.
Getting out of town.
Anybody in Honduras.
It's going to be great.
Baca and JT coming.
And we might be going to Costa Rica after that.
Yep.
Combo bonus.
Yep.
So that's going to be nuts.
That's going to be tight.
It's been a couple years. So.
Yeah, but it's like totally about like, working on those relationships with like kind of like your farmer producer partners down there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what's really helped us to, in partnership with them, bringing in some really awesome coffees.
That's freaking sick, dude.
Yeah, that's what, dude, makes me so stoked.
You're pumped.
Yeah, dude, I was so happy.
Chuck's the undercover coffee guy, if you guys don't know, okay? Everyone's like, Chris and Jared making coffee, but it all comes from this side of the table.
Yeah, and I mean, dude, it's something that I was passionate about. That's how I got into coffee, working in the farms, in Ethiopia and Kenya and South Sudan, and got to explore a little bit more of that side at Verve, and spend a lot of time with Jesse Krause, who was the buyer there, and Amanda, and just kind of develop that passion. And And
even just working, like kicking off your career in Africa.
Yeah.
You're like, you started where most people end.
Totally. It's a little bit different.
Which is interesting.
Right?
It's like most people are backwards. Like, I'm going to get a job in the cafe, and then I'm going to be a barista, and then process through, and then eventually I'll get to Origin.
Yeah.
And you just started at Origin. Yeah. And everything's like reverse engineered from there, which is pretty sick. I like it.
It's going to be like a unique perspective, and definitely like fuel the passion that I have for like seeing the work that we do and how it affects kind of where the coffee comes from.
It's so cool because it's I'm not as passionate about that stuff as you are, which is perfect.
Yeah.
Which I used to feel bad about, but I don't feel bad about it anymore.
No, it's like, it's being taken care of.
Yeah. You got the teamwork going on, and it's like, there's certain things that I'm better at and certain things that Jared's more passionate about.
Definitely.
And then it's like all works together, which people are always like, does Chuck make coffee? And I'm like, he makes it possible to make coffee.
Totally.
So it works like that.
He's tasting a lot of coffee. Yeah.
Dude. We're at 35. I think we're going to wrap this thing up.
Killer.
Only because I don't know how that's working. I don't know if this camera's working. And I'm really
going to go find out, dude.
And this might be a nightmare to edit. But yeah, thanks for watching the podcast. We're going to do these all on YouTube if you want to check them out. And you can see all the cool stuff that we have. Next time we're going to brew some coffee.
Oh, yep.
I'm going to bust out the Breville, which I've been using. Everybody's been writing me about a review of the Breville, the Oracle Touch. I use it all the time. It's awesome, but I'm not going to do an in-depth review yet because I want to really do it proper. Yep. But if you got $2,500, you should definitely buy one. If you're trying to get into the Breville game for a little bit cheaper, the brewer is awesome. I have one, Jared has one, and we make our day-to-day coffee on that. And then when Jenny, my wife, makes coffee, she just uses the gold cup setting with the gold filter. Jared uses the gold filter too. And then Jared's got his own little brew recipe. He's got a 45-second bloom, hot as you can get it. But
Dude,
you can really,
that's what's awesome. Everybody's got their recipe.
you can do whatever the hell you want. Yeah, you can even snap in a bunch of different. It's got basket type filters if you want to make a lot of coffee. You can throw in like a cone shaped filter if you just want to make like a cup of coffee. So it's freaking sick.
Yeah,
I'm down.
you do you.
You do you, bro. Whatever you want to do. All right, this is the Cat and Cloud podcast, and we will check you later.
Killer.